Obama is against researching for yourself. Obama came out on Friday saying we should take steps to detoxify our discourse, the scourge of disinformation and conspiracy theories. I agree in some sense. I mean, we need to detoxify from the disinformation of mainstream media. More and more people are waking up to the lies and propaganda every day, and that's starting to worry the elites. So they want to push a great narrative on top of the Great Reset. In Klaus Schwab's own words, they've been doing this for decades, but expect the official narrative, in quotes, to be defended a lot more relentlessly with fact checkers and even persecution if you go against it. In Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Narrative, that's so funny, Klaus explains how COVID was a perfect opportunity for them to bring in a new way of living, that COVID will be with us for decades. In quotes, the only way forward is radical welfare, taxation measures, and more top-down control. Let me read some of what was said in his book. So it says the pandemic was one such thing. Many international organizations and individuals had warned for years that a pandemic would occur, but despite this, it took most of the world by complete surprise. We hope that the COVID-19 crisis will soon be over, but will it? There is always a beginning and an end to every outbreak. But pandemics as a social and psychological phenomenon are not episodic. They linger for years. A historian of science and medicine puts it this way: we are living in the COVID-19 era, not the COVID-19 crisis. There will be a lot of changes that are substantial and persistent. We won't look back and say that was a terrible time, but it's over. We will be dealing with many of the ramifications of COVID-19 for decades. So it carries on to say some of these changes were already apparent prior to the crisis, but have been accelerated, even turbocharged, they say, as some pundits would argue, by the pandemic. Among them are the acceleration of automation and innovation, so humans replaced by robots, rising inequalities, the growing power of tech, and surveillance. Interesting. So they're controlling the collapse and literally telling you what needs to be done. But don't worry, it's for a virus. That's right. As expressed notably in the Great Resignation phenomenon, more radical welfare and taxation measures, new forms of state intervention, the rising appeal of well-being policies, and a new appreciation for nature. Oh, we're doing it because we just want to be green. So we're depopulating the earth because we need to keep it green, folks. These are just a few examples of new systemic changes that will grow in relevance. Carries on here, however, because of their inherently disruptive nature, pandemics can also prove to be a force for lasting and often radical change. The main fault lines that beset today's world, like social divides, lack of fairness, limited cooperation, failure of global governance, that's a problem, geopolitical turmoil, but also the extraordinary ability to mobilize and innovate when confronted with conditions of intense adversity. Who could have predicted back in the early days of the pandemic that so many governments and central banks would come to the rescue of their countries? Isn't that interesting? They're playing as your savior for constantly printing money and giving you hyperinflation and collapsing the US dollar, gas prices through the roof. They are literally collapsing everything.